Okay, let's look at this example. So here we're trying to decide if the outcome of this hypothesis test supports the researcher's claim, or if the hypothesis test doesn't really give us any evidence for the researcher's claim. So this is the one with the online classes where students are supposed to spend 10 hours a week per class. The director of e-learning thinks that students are having to spend more than 10 hours per week on each class. And then on down here a little bit, it tells us a hypothesis test with a 5% level of significance is performed on the director's claim. The result is to reject the null hypothesis. So now we kind of have to interpret that. Does that mean that the director of e-learning his claim was right, that we had evidence for that, or that we did not have evidence in favor of his claim? Okay, so first we need to think about the hypotheses. So he thinks students are spending more than 10 hours per week during each class. We're dealing with means here. So our alternative hypothesis is that the mean is greater than 10. So our null hypothesis would be that the mean is less than or equal to 10. So we were told the outcome of this test was that the null hypothesis was rejected. We rejected the null hypothesis. So is that a strong statement or is that a weak statement? Well, if we reject the null hypothesis, that's a really strong statement. Okay? That means we have strong evidence to support the alternative hypothesis. Okay, so now the other thing to think about, we're trying to decide if there was evidence to support the director's claim, or if there was not enough evidence to support the director's claim. Which one of these hypotheses goes with the director's claim? Well, that's the alternative hypothesis. Huh? He said he was afraid students were spending more than 10 hours per week. So here at the hypothesis test, we've got strong evidence to support the alternative hypothesis, which was the director's claim. So that means, yeah, our hypothesis test came out in favor of the director's claim. It looks like we've got really strong statistical evidence that the director is right, that students are having to spend more than 10 hours per week on each course. Okay, so let's look at one more. Oops, sorry. All right, this one says, based on historical data, the Board of Education for one large school district believes that the percentage of high school sophomores considering dropping out of school is at least 10%. A high school counselor in the district claims that this percentage is too high. A hypothesis test with an alpha of 0.02 is performed on the counselor's claim. The result is to fail to reject the null hypothesis. Did the findings support the counselor's claim? So we're failing to reject the null hypothesis here. So if we think about our hypotheses, it says the high school counselor in the district claims that this percentage is too high, thinks 10% is too high. So his claim, our alternative hypothesis, is that our proportion is less than 10%. If we look at those hypotheses, right, the bottom one, HA, less than 10%, that is the counselor's claim here. So in this case, it told us the result of our hypothesis test was that the null hypothesis was not rejected. So what does that mean about the counselor's claim? Well, since we did not have strong enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis, that means we don't have strong evidence in favor of the counselor's claim. Now here's something that's kind of tricky. Does that mean the counselor is wrong? No, because remember, when we fail to reject the null hypothesis, that's a really weak statement. We're not saying that the counselor is wrong. We're just saying that the evidence we collected was not strong enough to support his claim. That doesn't mean we're disproving his claim. That just means that right now we don't have enough evidence in favor of it. Okay, so rejecting the null hypothesis is a really strong statement. Yeah, it means we have strong support for the alternative hypothesis. But if we fail to reject the null hypothesis, we're really not saying anything. We're just saying we don't have enough evidence to make any kind of strong statement.